Today here, this list is about shocking, surprising, exciting, or otherwise badass moments in games. The kind that make your eyes bug out of your head, or at least, make you sit up and pay attention. The kind of stuff some people might not want getting spoiled, so just throwing a blanket spoiler warning over recent games for this whole video. See them on screen here. Anyway, with that list of games, let's get started off talking about them with number 10. Black Myth Wukong. This is a game with many, many insane moments and truly bizarre boss encounters, but for us here, the secret final boss fight trumps everything else in the game. This is like the moment that pays off the promise of the opening of the game. It starts off with this flashback to when the original Monkey King stormed the gates of heaven, and among the defenders are these 4 big Godzilla-sized guys. All they do is stand there during the opening, but, this is an action game, so you see a big guy, you want to fight that big guy. But it's a different kind of combat game. Games of these sorts usually rarely give you boss fights that are meant to be like these pure, gigantic God of War style spectacles. If you fight it, it's going to be tough, and it's going to play the established rules of the game. That's usually how these things work. So when you go to the trouble of unlocking this super secret boss and actually manage to beat him because he's like a holy shit moment all on his own, he's extremely tough, and it's kind of absurd how many different attack strings he has to work with, you're finally rewarded then with this epic throwdown with the 4 heavenly kings.
Monkey, such power must be new to you. You should first spar with them a while.
It gets completely nuts, and for a short while, Black Myth actually transforms into a completely different game. Your controls become totally different in your giant form, your attacks are slower, you have a whole set of new moves completely. It's like a totally unexpected twist for a game like this. It felt completely different the entire game, and then all of a sudden you have this big, crazy, awesome, almost kaiju fight. The actual fight itself isn't really super difficult, but it is one hell of a spectacle. The way this game is able to incorporate boss fights with multiple opponents that feels both fair and fun is impressive, and they use all their tricks to make this a boss fight for the history books, really. Here's an example of a modern action game where things don't have to be like finger-bleeding difficult. Sometimes all we want is just a big, awesome throwdown spectacle with a lot of cool stuff happening that's, at least semi-interactive, and this is one of the best examples of that. By the end of the game, you just didn't think Black Myth had it in it to like pull out a fight like this. It's so unexpected, especially because they're hiding one of the most impressive spectacles behind a secret boss that is like easily one of the biggest holy shit moments of this year. Next, over at number 9, after the extremely disappointing campaign from last year's Modern Warfare 3, myself, and I think a lot of other people were ready to write off Black Ops 6. They were going to have to pull out the stops to really get guys like me to stop complaining. And to Raven Software's credit, they did the impossible here and like made even the most jaded fan kind of sit up and pay attention, because the Black Ops 6 campaign is awesome. Does it have a compelling plot and make a lot of sense? No, not really, but it's fun. And some of these missions are truly crazy, entertaining thrill rides. There are a lot of standouts, but the clear winner here is the humbled Facility. It sounds like it's going to be some boring mission. How many games have you played with a mission or a level called Facility? Just go and investigate some old CIA base here. Just another generic run and shootout mission, right? Well, not even close. Things escalate pretty quickly as you enter the structure and you get gassed by this mystery substance, and then you spend the rest of the mission in a hallucination battling zombies in this kind of 1970s Bioshock Control-inspired science facility. Yes, This is where Call of Duty goes full fantasy. You're fighting zombies, special weird boss monsters, there are even killer mannequins that hunt you down. I'm tempted to call this the horror mission, but it's so over the top zany that like you're never actually scared. You're more just shocked by how audacious this is for a Call of Duty game. Cold War had some strange turns for sure, they all kind of have, but nothing like this. And like, we're not even just talking from a visual perspective either. This section of the game is just so much more gamey than what you usually get in the, you know, really immersion-obsessed world of Call of Duty campaigns. Here, there are boss monsters and colored key cards and a Batman grappling hook. Each section of the facility is like its own special gameplay challenge, and you better believe something crazy is going to happen behind these doors. It's like all classic video game 101 stuff, just done really tongue-in-cheek and really just having a lot of fun. The people who made this game clearly were influenced by a lot of great games, and they were proud to wear it all on their sleeves.
Try the grappling hook.
Next, over at number 8, there have been some good Warhammer 40k games in the past, but no other game has managed to capture the epic scale of the setting like Space Marine 2. This game like just manages to bring those old sourcebook paintings to life, you know, like the ones with the impossibly huge armies clashing that all kind of look like 80s heavy metal album covers. Well, Space Marine 2 actually lets you play those, and it can be pretty glorious to behold. The moment that really sticks in our mind is during one of the early missions where you have to defend this facility against an army of Tyranids, you know, the not xenomorphs of this setting. They really play up the scale of this clash with the churning sea of enemies far off in the distance, and then when they do attack, the numbers are impossibly high. It's like a tide washing over everything. And it is one of the most impressive effects I've seen in a game lately, especially when they start climbing the walls and you see this massive clump of creatures literally climbing over one another to get at you. The sheer volume of enemies is an impressive technical achievement by itself, yeah, but like the way they're actually able to make these things so numerous, but also feel so dangerous at the same time is just solid game design, entertaining stuff. But again, it's the spectacle of seeing so many of these monsters just attacking at the same time. It is so cool. Next, over at number 7, I don't think we're gonna ruffle any feathers here by saying that Elden Ring is kind of a weird game. Seriously, there's a messenger of the gods called the Two Fingers, and it's just a giant gnarly hand with two crooked fingers sticking out. Cue the, that I don't know what expected meme here. That definitely fits. But in the DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree, we actually learn a little bit more about these mysterious gross fingers by visiting the abbot at the Church of Manus Mater and completing a quest that involves visiting these giant finger ruins dotted around the DLC's world. The guy has like a baby finger creature. Just let me reiterate here. Yes, this is all extremely weird. Underneath the church is this bizarre underground structure that leads to a bell. And if you complete the quest, then it'll allow you to reach the titular finger birthing grounds, where you'll find one of the more grotesque bosses From has ever done. The Mother of Fingers. It's a crazy, twisted up bunch of hands and fingers all like mushed together into this gross blob in this primordial realm with big, unpleasant looking white holes everywhere. All this madness wouldn't look out of place in Bloodborne, and I don't know about you, but when I first saw this thing, I was just in shock. Like what is even going on? It's a big hand that gives birth to little hands, which are supposed to be the great and holy things that offer guidance and wisdom to everyone in the lands between. And this is where they come from this big, like, weird, gross, brainless freak. Just look at its super attack. Like, we're getting into abstract art territory here. And this is what we're here for with From Software DLC, right? It lets them really get into the freaky stuff. and Shadow the Erdtree does not disappoint. Maybe this is more of a WTF moment than a holy shit one, but there's a lot of crossover here. Sure, the last boss reveal is a hell of a thing, but we've seen that guy before. This gross thing is new and awesome. Now over at number 6, there's still a little juice in BioWare's tank. Say what you will about Dragon Age the Veilguard, but the final missions really pull out all the stops and make for one of the more interesting conclusions they've done in a minute. Yes, it's definitely the studio playing the hits, like what they do. I mean, everyone loved the suicide mission from Mass Effect 2, so they were thinking to kind of do it again here. But how it plays out is completely different from a story level. So trying to explain how we got here is kind of pointless, but the general idea is that there are 2 bad guy gods that got released at the start of the game, and you gotta kill them. The mission is split into 2 parts. The first on an island, and the second in the final battle that has shades of the siege from the end of Dragon Age Origins, or just like a much better version of the Battle for Earth in Mass Effect 3. These missions are long, and the choices you're forced to make are tense because characters can and will die if you do the incorrect thing. And honestly, we're all for these kinds of stakes in an endgame. I wasn't particularly enamored with the characters in the party up to this point, but the decisions still have a good amount of weight to them because they make you feel like it's serious life or death decisions. And seeing your choices actually play out mid-mission is a great addition that makes the battle look massive without getting you too bogged down in the details. And for a game where leading up to this, a lot of the decisions didn't feel like that big of a deal. There weren't a ton of them. Here, they kind of bring it back around and have some actual decisions that make a lot of interesting, meaningful impacts. A lot of these things at the end of the game, the clashes, the confrontations, are pretty epic. It's like a pretty cool conclusion. So if there's like one thing that the Veilguard succeeds at, and it wasn't a game we totally loved, it is at least that they have the big spectacle missions like this. The in-between isn't nearly as strong, but with so many games ending with like a wet fart, having a properly satisfying final mission in a game means a lot in this day and age. Next, over at number 5, I think we were all expecting some kind of Control tie-in with the Alan Wake 2 DLC. I mean, the whole shtick of this thing is that you're going to an FBC research lab that's connected to Cauldron Lake from the Alan Wake games. And this add-on was, by necessity, going to have some connections to that game. But even knowing that going in, the somewhat hidden Ocean View Hotel here is still a real shocker. So, okay, this one is mostly for fans of Control. I don't think you're going to get much out of it if you've never played that game. Pretty much everything about this is only impressive or surprising to someone who's familiar with that game and curious to see where they're actually taking the story next. So what makes this whole thing so effective is how much it actually gives away. I was expecting something closer to the Alan Wake DLC for Control, where there were a lot of vague allusions and subtle hints, but nothing concrete, while this game just comes out and says it.
Quick lesson on light switch cords. If you find one, pull it 3 times.
You go through the hotel from Control, but what's inside is something completely different. One of the doors is open, which then leads into a hallway that looks totally different from the rest of the hotel. There's a painting of what looks like Jesse's brother Dylan as the director of the FBC instead of her, and when you proceed, you end up in a place like from Control. Inside is Dylan, but for the first time, he's actually speaking coherently rather than in gibberish. That alone is a real shocker, and he reveals that it's been 4 years since the oldest house has gone dark, and apparently things might be getting worse.
I'm Agent Kieran Estevez, Federal Bureau of Control. Identify yourself.
It's quiet.
Who are you?
It's been a long time since I've seen anyone.
There's a sign over there for the Panopticon. The Panopticon's only in New York, in HQ. Is this the oldest house?
I think that's where I am.
So you are inside the oldest house. Is anyone else alive?
What follows is essentially a trailer for Control 2, and it looks intriguing as hell, but even just talking about the playable parts, this is still one of the most surprising reveals in the entire Remedy Control universe. It makes it seem like Dylan is actually going to be a major player in the sequel, compared to the first game where he was barely in it. So yes, for Control heads, this is all huge holy shit stuff, but for everyone else, it's just kind of a guy talking in a glass cage. Next, over at number 4, the recent Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Now, this is an Indiana Jones game, so you're going to expect some spectacle, but it takes a long time to really get there. This isn't Uncharted or the Tomb Raider reboot games where it's non-stop insane action like extravaganza. This game takes its time and lets things build up before the crazy stuff starts happening. So the real wild stuff starts in the Himalayas, the third location you go to in search of these stones connected to the titular Great Circle. So begins part 1 of the holy shit moments for this entry, as you find an entire German U-boat trapped on top of a mountain. That's crazy enough. You know, exploring this ship is pretty creepy. You know, it gives us some real cryostasis vibes to the 3 people in the audience who know what we're talking about.
This is creepy.
Here, you learn that these stones actually have the power to fold the earth and essentially teleport stuff. And you probably see where this is going. So after an encounter with bad guy number 2 on this ship, Indy escapes using the stone with Gina and is teleported randomly to Shanghai in 1937 during the Japanese bombing campaign. It's a hell of a rude awakening. Suddenly, you're just like in the middle of a war zone with bombs going off everywhere and a city destroyed, and these planes taking potshots at you from the sky. You even get into a fist fight with a Japanese pilot who like parachuted into the city.
Why'd you have to do that?
It's not an area you spend too much time in, but the visuals are insane. Just explosions and things collapsing all over the place in these hyper-detailed environments. And how this whole sequence ends is so ridiculous that an Uncharted game would probably nix it for being too over the top. You escape the city by flying a biplane off a roof. You're shooting Zeros down with a turret gun. There's a Last Crusade reference, and then they top the whole thing off by having Indy jump from a moving plane to another, and then beat up the pilot, steal it, and fly away.
Just hold the plane still!
It's absolutely absurd. It's pushing it for Indiana Jones, but it is entertaining. Now down at number 3, for most of the game, the most recent Alone in the Dark reboot keeps the cosmic horror stuff pretty close to the chest. By the end, all the weird stuff you experience seems like it's just going to be hallucinations or have some kind of normal explanation. The spooky guy hunting you is just one of the many weirdos inhabiting the mansion. By the end, it just feels like it's all going to wrap up Scooby-Doo style. All the supernatural stuff was just a red herring.
You awake? You are awake. Mr. Conby's up.
Hey, buddy. I thought you'd be knocked out for the rest of the night. Come on out and join us, will you? I'll save you some gumbo.
Good to have you back. You gave us all a good scare.
What happened?
You had a psychological breakdown.
And then suddenly, the game goes off the deep end. All the quirky characters are performing a demonic ritual, and the big tree suddenly starts walking around, killing all these characters left and right out of nowhere, and now you have to like fight this thing.
Jeremy! Come
I want to make it clear, there is nothing else like this gigantic thing in the rest of the game. It's literally the Lovecraft monster, aka the black goat of the woods with 1,000 young. And like any good cosmic god, you can kill it with a shotgun. You know, the rest of the game is so mannered with its cast of characters, but in the end, they all get slaughtered out of nowhere, and it's kind of amazing in this like darkly comedic way. Alone in the Dark is ultimately kind of a mediocre game, but that ending, man, it goes from 0 to 100 in an instant to the point where like I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Now down at number 2, Mouthwashing. What the hell even is this game? Like, it's a psychological horror game, sort of, and a pitch black comedy at the same time. It is essentially a walking simulator. You know, you're here to experience the extremely messed up story, and let me tell you, this story goes places. The non-linear story chronicles this stranded spaceship's slow decline into madness and murder. Mouthwash plays a central role, as does this whole bandaged up lump of flesh named Curly. By the end of the game, we're in full cuckoo mode where it's all abstract imagery that tends to have a lot of eyeballs over everything. But what makes things especially disturbing isn't the hallucinations, it's what's actually implied to be happening. In its last minutes, things go really off the deep end, where there's this like mini game where you feed Curly his own leg and make sure it goes to his stomach, otherwise he throws up all over himself. Yes, you're feeding him his own leg. He's implied to still be conscious too, so he's aware of what's happening but isn't really able to do anything about it. It's messed up. And they hit us with this charming segment then where you use like an ultrasound of this big meat fetus thing, which slowly forms into this messed up face, and then like a giant centipede monster baby thing comes out because of course. Then it's like charging around these maze-like vents and it kills you if it instantly touches you. Look, I'm not even going to get into the actual ending, but you better believe I was muttering holy shit when the credits started to roll. Mouthwashing is disturbing and darkly hilarious. Definitely recommend it for the sickos out there. You know who you are. Now down at number 1, trying to explain the premise, let alone the plot of Slitterhead, is an exercise in futility, but I'm going to try and lay down at least a little bit of the groundwork as to why the final moment here is so utterly insane. So the central gameplay gimmick of Slitterhead is that you play as this spirit guy who possesses people. There are certain characters who are special and get unique moves and retain their will when they're possessed. Those are the main characters who you can bring along on missions, like their party members. But part of the gameplay involves possessing random bystanders around to assist in combat or get around some obstacles. So from everything you've seen about this weird ass game, you probably assume it's a horror game, but it's not really. It's more of an action game with a horror premise. So, to make a long story short, by the end of the game, the original premise is pretty much completely out the window. Instead of hunting these human mimicking monsters, the titular Slitterheads, you're actually engaging in a civil war between the first two party members, Julie and Alex. How we got here, I have no idea. Seriously, I'm not saying that like to be funny. Like, I honestly have no idea what is supposed to be happening at this point. Don't worry about the Slitterheads at this point. They're irrelevant to the ending of the game called Slitterhead. Instead, you play as Julie fighting Alex, who's like gone crazy, I guess, gone insane. Anyway, that's the final battle. You beat him, and then he starts laughing maniacally. Obviously, like, that can't be good. And then that's when you see it. He's possessed a pilot flying a commercial jet airliner and crashes it into Hong Kong in the city, causing the very disaster you were spending the whole game trying to prevent. Makes you think, I guess. Okay, but then that's not the true ending. Yes, there's a true secret ending here, and getting it is like pulling teeth. So, of course, at gameranx here, some of us did it, and you got to admit it, it was worth it because with the true ending unlocked, you have to fight an even harder version of Alex. And when you beat them, they do the exact same thing as before, only this time you can stop them by possessing someone in the airplane yourself. It's on a time limit, so you have to realize what you're supposed to do. And that's turn into a spirit and then lock on with a distant target on the plane, which then triggers the final cutscene where you possess a passenger and battle it out with the possessed pilot. It is absolutely an insane ending to what is already one of the weirdest games in recent memory. That's the point here. These are 10 holy shit crazy moments in recent games. If you've played any of these, we'd love to hear your perspective, or if you've got any more for us in some recent games, let us know. If you like talking games with us every single day, clicking the like button's all you gotta do. We really appreciate that. And if you're new, consider subscribing, maybe hitting that notification bell, because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.